Hello, everybody. My name's Milan Starcic. Welcome to Freedom Rising, a podcast dedicated to empowering individuals on the journey to personal growth, lasting serenity, and freedom from addiction. Tune in and join the movement. Your journey to freedom starts here. We neither represent, promote, or demote any 12-step program or organization. We are merely souls on the path of recovery with the desire to expand our lives and experiences and share them with you. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 147th Recovery Freedom Rising podcast. I'm Milan Starcic with co-host Darrin Conner. Darrin, it was a pleasure to meet you when I was at the Vancouver 2025 International Conference. Everybody out there, it was kind of by chance. We went to a meeting that had gotten moved, and the meeting was actually on gratitude. And Darrin turns to me when nobody showed up and said, you know, where I'm from, we just started a meeting whether the people who were running it are here or not. And for me, I've got much less recovery than Darrin, but I certainly have chaired a lot of meetings and was happy to jump in with him. And to be honest, we hosted a super heartfelt hour there. It was great. I mean, I there was love and there was tears in that room, and it was great. So, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, Darrin?
Yeah, absolutely, Milan. And thank you again for having me on your show. It's a pleasure for me.
Pleasure's
My
mine,
name is
brother.
my name is Darrin Conner. My sobriety date is 10/19 of 2009, and I am just extremely grateful for recovery, for the people that came before me, the treatment center that I went through in Houston, Texas, is where I'm from, and just all the blessings that this power I choose to call God has graciously given me.
I love that. And so I asked this question of everybody the first time they're on the show because I want to show a newcomer out there how different we all have our pivotal moments. So if you could think back, what was the pivotal moment that the program sparked a recovery fire in your heart, where it went from I have to I love to to seeing this as, a chore versus the solution?
Right. Now, that's a great question. Well, let me just tell you, I'll back up a little bit. So in 2006, I got an intervention done on me by my family and put me in the treatment center. And I stayed sober for almost 4 years and checking the boxes, going to meetings, all that. And I got a lot of bad information, Milan, from the rooms instead of from the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous.
Mm-mm.
And so, long story short, I relapsed. Two weeks away from when I was supposed to get married to my wife, who's in the program too. But that's a whole nother episode. But when I came back, then I realized that this is about a relationship with God. It's not about checking the boxes and going to meetings and just going through the motions. That's sort of what I was doing. It was just something I sort of had to do.
Mhm.
And this time around, I really just got plugged into the power that the book talks about, and the power sort of changed my heart and my mind to where I just love recovery today.
That's amazing. I love that story. And so it's your connection with your higher power you feel that is giving you the freedom.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I love that. And so that ties right into our topic for today. So when I mentioned briefly a few moments ago, everybody, it was the meeting was about gratitude that Darrin and I ended up chairing together. So today's topic is about gratitude. Gratitude's kind of how we met, and I thought it would be great for a first episode for us. So would you share what gratitude means to you and why you were happy to come discuss this here today?
Yeah, gratitude to me, we always think of gratitude as just an emotion or a feeling.
Mhm.
And, before I got to recovery, that's sort of what I thought it was. But then, in recovery, I learned I can't always trust my feelings, right? And so I was in a meeting one time early on, and a guy said gratitude is an action. And over these almost 16 years, Milan, I've sort of thought about that, and I don't know of a truer statement than that, because I can say I'm grateful for my wife and then treat her like crap, and then am I really grateful? Right? If I'm grateful for her, I'm going to treat her the way God would want me to treat my wife. And, same as my job and same with everything else. And so I've really tried to put this gratitude into action. And on the flip side of that, because I know today when I'm not, that it's not an emotion or feeling, when I don't feel grateful, I still just do the action. And then somewhere around my head gets back to grateful again.
I love that. That's wonderful. For me, gosh, I've seen an ever increasing importance to gratitude. Before I was even in the program, I have a tattoo here, and underneath it, it says, "I'm grateful for the privilege to help and serve." Gratitude was definitely something I saw the value of, but was much harder to maintain in my active drinking and using of drugs. Uh, you get disconnected from things,
Mm.
and amazing things that are worthy of gratitude pass you by and you don't even notice in your haze, right? Or for me, I didn't even notice, and so it's gratitude brings me an awareness for right now, not yesterday, not someday, but right now. And it keeps me in that conscious contact with my higher power, you can't bank a conscious contact yesterday, and tomorrow's conscious contact is not what you feel right now. And and I really believe maintaining that conscious contact gives me the opportunity to be my best me, and through gratitude, it's that cycle of positive appreciation in the universe. My first sponsor, he said gratitude's an action. That's what he said. Gratitude's he was a Native American, and he really talked about creator, and his creator was called God sometimes, but it was really, like, if you have gratitude for this sunny day, then let the sun shine on your face. If you have gratitude for your dogs, walk them and make them happy, treat them nicely. And so I really do see gratitude as being an action and try to implement that in my life, and then another thing that happened for me was, this spring I had a real reminder from a friend. This isn't a program of self improvement. This is a program of surrender. And I had gotten caught up on a few of my defects. I was like, okay, higher power, you got those ones, but I'm going to keep working on anger even though I sucked at it, right? And so there was a few defects that I was kind of plateaued out on, and because I wasn't surrendering them, I really wasn't looking at it the right way. And another thing that kind of got reminded to me at that point was that I wasn't giving gratitude for the amount of that shortcoming that had changed, you know? And I feel that to keep the flow going in my life, I need to try to practice gratitude in every circumstance. And it's really something that, I'm trying to get better at, because, the sooner we can embrace the constant state of change, I think the freer we become. Okay,
Absolutely.
I'm going to roll into a question here. Okay, gratitude in the moment is the awareness that right now is enough because we are enough. How do you return to gratitude when your mind wants to rush ahead or look back?
That's a good question. The very first thing that I teach my sponsees when I sit down with them is I've never seen an alcoholic or an addict that is grateful and humble relapse. So that the gratitude and the humility are the two key ingredients for me. We always talk about that. Humility is the principle behind every step, and on and on and on. But we very rarely link the gratitude as well to that, right? And so I know my problem never was alcohol. The book's real clear on that, right? That's a symptom of my problem. My problem is I'm restless, irritable, and ungrateful. That's not the word he uses. He uses discontented, but that's what it is. I lose the gratitude, right? I'm discontented with the things around me. I'm ungrateful, and so I really try to like hang on to that. That is my innermost spiritual problem. Is the
Hmm.
ungratitude, is the being ungrateful for everything
Yep.
around me. And so when I do get ungrateful, because I'm human, right?
Yep.
Yeah, they taught me the highest level I'm ever going to achieve in sobriety is human. So I'm going to still mess up on things, right?
Yeah.
And so when I get into these places where I don't feel grateful, I
Mm.
realized, hey, this is my alcoholism. I'm restless, irritable, and discontented. And
Yeah.
so then I do what the literature, I always follow the literature, Milan. I don't try to find my own recovery. And
Mm.
the literature says when I get in these situations, I'm doubtful, I'm agitated, I'm ungrateful, whatever. I pause and ask God, okay, help me to become grateful again. Help me, show me the good instead of the bad,
Mm.
change my heart, change my thinking.
Hmm.
And the power does for me what I can't do for myself.
I love that. Like how do I return to gratitude when my mind wants to rush ahead or look back? So I met another a guy from, oh gosh, Odessa, Texas, when I was down there, and he had spoken about two-way prayer. And he kind of introduced me to two-way prayer. I'm not sure if you practice that at all, but so one of the things for me that was just kind of revealed in the last few days for my two-way prayer was to shorten the intervals between my gratitude. I'm part of a couple gratitude lists in the morning with people, but like actually to keep myself from feeling that discontented, right, is to implement just, more often, like a regular reminder to myself to instigate, or stop and appreciate, pause and love what's going on around me, because there's always some magic to love, you know and when you start to give more gratitude, then there's less room for discontented thoughts to live in your mind, right? And so, for me, I would say that it was prayer and practicing more frequent gratitudes for me for that question. Do you have a question for me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. What are you grateful for? I don't think we talk about that enough of like what are the things around me that recovery has given me that I'm grateful for?
Whew, man, a completely new outlook on life. A completely, like, I was truly miserable my last 6 months. Like, I can, I think of that and I instantly am transported back to like a cringing level of anxiety, of shame, of guilt, and just like felt the feeling of being trapped. There's such a feeling of ease and freedom that exists now in my life that, um, I can't even start to say the level of gratitude. Like I don't even feel like the same person, but all my day-to-day gratitudes, first of all, I'm grateful for the privilege to help and serve. I believe that service is pretty much, as far as I've found, the greatest vehicle for not thinking about me. And that is the main part of my problem. Like I can think about me all day long, effortlessly. But getting out there and doing some service, I've got currently have three sponsees, and you know what, with working a full-time job, that's enough right now. I offer my hand up still for temporary sponsor because I'm going to help anybody who's suffering in front of my face, but I had five sponsees before, and just with work and life and family and dogs and farm and everything, it was not leaving enough for me to stay centered. And so I think right now, service, I absolutely adore my family. My dogs are part of my family. We have, let's see, 5.5 acres with a house I built on it where my parents live and my wife's dad lives. And so we have a family compound. And we're the last house for, like, I don't know, about a mile one direction. So we have space. And every day I walk that multiple times with my dog. It's how I'm implementing for my health now. And I'm so grateful for the beauty that I get to live in. And then, I'm really grateful for this podcast because it lets me experience time one on one with a lot of people who have a lot more recovery from me, and I get to learn, like, even if it's like one thing from every guest. There's no way sharing a conversation of this type for close to 2 hours that we're not going to walk away with something if we're open to it, you know and even if what we walk away with is that I love that guy, You know, that's enough. That's enough. And so yeah, right now. And okay, yes. And my music. I write and record a lot of music, and that is one of my major meditations in this world. And since coming into recovery, I most of my writing is kind of how I'm digesting what I'm currently learning inside the program. And I like last year I wrote and recorded 1138 songs. Like it's I love to do it. It's part of my life. And so, and my day is a really rinse and repeat day. I'm really happy with the simplicity of what's going on in my life right now. And I can honestly say that I've never had a period in my life where I like if you groundhog dayed my last month, I'd live that month forever without any issues. And I've never had a content period in my life. You talk about discontented, there's a lot of contentment inside what's happening for me right now. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to continue to grow, you know that it, growth to me, it's like you're either growing or dying. Like I don't have a stop. Like I feel like I'm either growing or I'm receding. And so I keep on myself to remain active in that growth. I'm a seeker. When they say seeker, I seek. And how about you?
Yeah, I'm like you. We could talk. Really, we could do a 5-hour show just on what we're grateful for, what the program has given us, right? But
Yeah.
but I'll condense that down.
Yeah.
I think for me, the biggest thing, Milan, is the relationship. When I got here, my daughter was like 5 or 6 years old, and she's never seen me drink ever.
Wow.
And so she's in college today, and she'll tell you that she has the best dad on the planet. And that's only because of you guys. That's because of recovery, sobriety, which are two different things. That's another podcast though.
Yeah.
But the recovery and the sobriety, and learning how to suit up and show up for her and be a father, which I know you can relate to that because I got the pleasure of meeting your daughter at the conference. And so that was, that was a special place in my heart because my daughter is the same, even though she's not in the program, but she's benefited from it, right? Because she's
Mm-hmm.
got a father that's been here all this time. And I think we miss this sometimes, Elon. The book says that the dysfunctional relationships with other human beings are the chief cause of all of our problems, including our alcoholism. So, in the book is about I don't know how to have a relationship with people, right? All
Mm-hmm.
through the literature, which is my problem, which is part of the reason that I'm discontented and restless and irritable, is because of all these dysfunctional relationships around me. And so today, man, I'm a good son, I'm a good husband, I'm a good father, I'm a good employee. It's these relationships around me that I can be a good friend today. I think that's one of the top things that I'm grateful for. And then to echo you a little bit, the service for sure. I think one of the greatest things that I ever learned in recovery is that the three sides of the triangle have to be equal, 33.3%. So you hear a lot of people when they relapse, they're like, well, I was doing this, but I wasn't sponsoring, or I was working the steps, but I wasn't fellowshipping with and so all three of those sides to me have to be exactly equal. The recovery, that's the work that I do with my sponsor and my higher power and the working on the defects like you were talking about, right? The unity is the fellowship, is the meetings, is the after dinner meetings, the conventions in Vancouver, the fellowship, and then the service. Like that service has to be an equal part of that. And so I'm like you, I sponsor five. Five is too many, but I have five right now. I prefer two or three,
Oh
but I
yeah.
just picked up the fifth one the other day because I can't say no,
I know I
especially with
can't
people
either.
that need help. But so doing that service work, and somebody asked me, I had a sponsee like 2 or 3 weeks ago, actually, wasn't that long ago, asked me, so I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you sponsor all these guys, go volunteer at the treatment center and work and, be married and have all this other stuff. And I told them it's because I can't ever outgive this program. Every time I try to give back what they gave me, I get more in return. And it's this vicious cycle of now owe more, right? And I just have to keep trying to give and give and give. And I'll end with this so we can move on to the next question. But I was in some meeting somewhere, and that somebody said, if I take something bad out,
Mm-hmm.
I have to fill it with something good, or the bad's going to return even worse than it was before. And that
Mm-hmm.
sort of floored me. That's recovery to me. I took all of the selfish self-centeredness, all the defects, not all of them, but the main
Mm-hmm.
ones, and I cleared all this stuff out so that the grace of God could come in. And so I need to fill that with something positive, and that's that service. That's that working with the sponsees and having the meeting on the porch and
Mm.
trying to help other people. And so I think those are the things for me.
And for me, one thing I really realized quickly coming out of treatment, service starts at home. Like it starts by making sure that you're actually in service of the immediate people around you, regardless of the program. Like the program obviously is a life saving thing, and I am happy to go and save lives. But if like my mom needs help doing something and I'm not paying attention to that, that's not having a balance of service around my life, you know? Like I think that a lot of people are like, yeah, I do all this for the, and I think it's really important for people to know that service starts at home. Like they say, service is a posture of the heart, and that posture of the heart, it should be with you everywhere you go. Like, and I really believe that it's just like be helpful in every circumstance, and you're never going to regret it.
Well, Bill talks about that in the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
He says in the very, very beginning of the literature, when we first get down to step one, he says the elimination of the alcohol is but a beginning.
Yeah.
More important than the elimination of alcohol is practicing these principles at home, work, and everywhere else. There's a reason why he didn't just say everywhere. He put
Yeah.
home first and
Yeah.
he put work first. Second is because the home is the hardest place for me. It's the most important place, but those are the people that I really care about. I'm connected to, right?
Mm.
Those are the people that get on my nerves a little bit because I really love them, right? They matter to me. And so I
Yeah.
have to work hard to practice this principles at home. And then the second thing, exactly what you just said, he says if an alcoholic fails to perfect and enlarge his spiritual life through work and self sacrifice for others, he doesn't say other alcoholics. He says in step
Mm.
12, carry
Yeah.
the message to other alcoholics. But in that part, he just says work and self sacrifice for others. So you're 100% right. It's my neighbor across the street. It's the,
Mm-hmm.
the little lady at the grocery store. It is the sponsee in recovery too, but it's
Mm.
also my mother and my
Mm.
daughter and my fellows around me. So I'm glad that you brought that up. That was a really good
Mm-hmm.
point.
Well, and the thing is like if we are, if we are but a part in this whole universe, right? Then like I believe that like our connection to all of that means that we're of service to all of that. Like
Absolutely.
it's not like okay, I'll help the red but not the black, and like whatever. It's just I just feel that to me what feels the truth, and the reason that I brought that up was just because when we were talking about service, like I just remember kind of trying to dive into service in the program, and then there was just some stuff that wasn't done around my house, and I was like, whoa. I was like, I'm not. And it made me step back and take another evaluation of myself. Okay, I got another question for you here. Gratitude is not just for what we have, but for what we've been spared. What do you no longer carry today that you're quietly grateful for?
Well, obviously, Milan, everybody here has the 4 step dirt when they first get here,
Mm,
and I'm sure I'm no different than you and everybody else in this program. There was a couple of things that I was taking to my grave, that I was not
mm,
telling, the shame and the guilt
mm, mm,
and and I remember early on, I mean, like literally, like when I was several months sober and a couple months sober doing the 4 step, and they convinced me if you don't relinquish that stuff, you won't make it. You won't
Mm,
make it. And I bought into that. And I literally put everything down in the fourth step, everything,
yeah,
all of it.
yeah,
And I remember walking. Number one, I remember being pretty silly of like I carried that around my whole life and let that destroy me for no reason. That's a,
yeah.
you know. But then I felt this relief of wow, I don't have to have secrets today. I don't have to live in guilt and shame and so I think those are the things for me. And still to this day, I'm I'm coming up on 16 years sober. I still call my sponsor twice a week, and I still talk about everything that's going on. I still have no secrets. If I
Yeah,
get something inside of me, I get it out and clean that
yeah.
out. And so I think that's that. To answer your question, taking away the secrets and the shame and the guilt and the hiding and the oh, I hope nobody finds out about this, or taking all that away out of my life has been one of the greatest blessings of recovery for me.
I love that. You know, it's funny because that wasn't the first thing I thought about when I looked at that question. But if I think about the biggest thing that I don't carry anymore, like I was raised Catholic. I had a bag of guilt like that I thought was never going anywhere, man. Like never going anywhere. And when I did my first step five, it was the first guilt free 36 hours that I had ever had in my life. I was like streaming tears of joy, really, for almost a day and a half. Like just till the, like, not because I was done after that, but just because there was no more tears. Like my body was just like, okay, dude, we got nothing left here to pour out. But it was like the most liberating feeling. Like I would work a 14-hour day doing carpentry in my 20s. I would be on my way home and I'd feel guilty buying myself a chocolate bar. Like I had crazy guilt, like just for the most ridiculous things. And to have like at 51 and a half to have a guilt-free moment, it was the most intense liberation. Like when they talk about pink cloud, man, it was more hot pants pink than your shirt. Like I was like woo, I was up on my cloud, I was loving it. Like yeah. and and that to me, my surrender and that just I fell in love with the program and had such a faith in what this program could do from then on. You know, like I was it was proof. Like there was no pretending that had happened or like faking or like it was pure, honest freedom that I had a taste of and serenity. Like that's the one thing is, like you can call it guilt, you can call it shame. But what I'll call it is a whole bunch of crazy thoughts that hurt me inside my head. And when they can go silent, it was my first speck of space in my life. Like, like I had no clue what serenity was until then, really, at all. Okay, do you have another question for me?
I do, and it's almost the same question that you had asked me before, but maybe we'll get some different answers of,
Yeah.
just what does the gratitude mean to you? What is gratitude, as the word, as the action? What does it actually mean to you in real time?
One of the things I think is that when you spoke earlier about it, um, like gratitude used to be like thanks. Like thanks, thanks for helping me with my firewood or something like that. It was a phrase, right? And then coming into the program and my first sponsor really kind of, you know, talking about gratitude as an action. He's like, what have you done today for gratitude? Like that was how he would ask it. It wasn't like, what did you say today for gratitude? And now what I see gratitude as, it's like a way, it's like part of the freedom puzzle, you know, where if I like when I in my treatment center, I sat on a couch and across from the couch was one sign and it said that what you focus on becomes greater, you know? And so I've always tried to focus on my recovery, not on my addiction. Like I'm looking forward. And I think that gratitude is very much like that. Like I am looking towards that sort of freedom Like whether I'm trying to gain love instead of anger, whether I'm trying to gain, faith instead of fear. Like I'm trying to look at what it is that is, the removal of that defect or shortcoming, or the surrender of that, and I think that gratitude is one of the mindsets, like I don't know if you've ever read any Michael Singer. Well, anyway, he wrote this book called The Untethered Soul, and the Surrender Experiment, and he talks a lot about surrender in his stuff. But it's kind of like when you get a scar kind of on your heart, like we have a built up bunch of before we hit the program, right? It kind of like closes part of your heart off, and it's kind of like up to us to reopen that. And I think that gratitude is one of the ways that we reopen ourselves to the universe from being closed off. So
Absolutely.
for me, it's okay. One of the points I just missed that I wanted to get to there is we have this voice in our head, that is like the stop jogging if you're jogging, stop early. You know what I mean? That, oh, just get yourself those chips. Like if you're trying to do something physical, or a lot of things, it's like that little monkey in your back that says maybe what I would call negative or contrary to your goals or ideals, and what he said, which I think has been very valuable for me, is we don't try to fight to silence that voice. What we do is we replace the space around that voice with positive things. And eventually there's less space for those negative things to be there. And so, gratitude is like feeling like, almost like praying thank you, you know? I heard somebody say this week, worrying is praying for bad things to happen. And I thought that was a good, counter gratitude statement, right?
Absolutely.
I'm not sure if I answered the question, but you know what? In
No,
on the
that was great.
on this
That
show,
was great.
it's kind of like, what does the question inspire, right? And that's
You're
more,
right.
you know. And so for you,
Absolutely. Yeah. So I try to link this all, all this. I learned early on that I have a spiritual malady. So this is a spiritual program of action. It's not a program of action. We always say it's a program of action. No, it's a spiritual program of action. I'm supposed
yeah,
to be taking spiritual action, right? And
yeah,
so I try to link all this stuff to my higher power, whom I choose to call God. He says humility is the desire to seek and do God's will, right?
mhm,
And so for me, the gratitude is the attitude or the action to show God that I'm appreciative of all the things that He's done for me, right? And so I really try to live in that vein because, I mean, think about it on the bigger picture. If I am ungrateful, right? I'm basically telling God, you don't know what you're doing here. This is not working the way that I want it to work, right? I'm not trusting you. And so I always, and this is the same thing when I get in fear, I'm not trusting God. When, everything comes back to I'm back relying on self instead of relying on God, right? And so I think that sort of sparks some of the gratitude because things happen in your life and you're like, this is not what I really want. This is not the way I envision this. And it's real easy to like become ungrateful. But then if you can switch but you know what, God, this you have a plan, you've always taken care of me, you've always been good to me, then I'm able to take the action and the attitude of I'm grateful because I know that there's a plan and that you've done this and there's a reason for all this. And so I try to stay in that mindset. When I start thinking about me and my little plans and it's not going the way I want, I live in, ungrateful. But when
mhm.
I can say, that follow God, trust God, I think we miss this sometimes, Milan. He says that we talk about all these 5,000 things that we have to do in recovery, and Bill says burn in the conscience of the new man that the only thing he needs to stay sober is to trust God and clean house. He doesn't even say help others in that position later on, because
Hmm.
now I'm trusting God and cleaning house, then I want to help others, but right there he says trust God and clean house. And so he doesn't say, understand God, figure God out, come
Mm.
to a logical thing of what God is. He says, trust God. I just got to trust that God knows what he's doing, that there's a reason for this, and that it's happening the way it's supposed to happen. And then when I can do that, then I can, get back in that state of gratitude and start taking the actions of the gratitude.
I love that. That's awesome. Are you ready for another question?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The practice of gratitude transforms what we have into more than enough. How do you stay rooted in appreciation rather than striving for more?
That's a good question, Lon, because society tells me, and especially as a man, I got to make money. That's who I am. Is what I do, and I got to take care of my family, and then just the society that we live in. It's more and more and more. I want bigger. I
Mm.
want better. I want what they have, and if I'm not careful, I fall into that trap. And I'm glad that Bill warns us of that. He says, It's fine going after things and making money and doing things. I got to do those things to survive, but I can't put that above humility and spiritual growth. Right.
Mm.
And so I try to keep that tempered. My wife told me, I guess this is going to be a roundabout way to answer your question, but she told me one time, because, I've been here a few days, and she said, you know, you could, you could get a lot better job and make a lot more money. You're smart, blah, 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 blah. And I told her, yeah, probably I could, but then would I be able to work with my 5 sponsees? Would I be able to go volunteer at the treatment center? Right. So there's more important things than just making money. The old me, I wouldn't have worked to help these people, or did I need to go get better and more and ahead and get that stuff you were talking about. But today, I just try to live in that contentment of, you know what, I've got enough. I've got enough. God
Mm.
has provided me enough. And I get to work with these guys, and I get to volunteer at the treatment center, and I get to do that thing. And just so staying in that contentment, that's a word we don't talk too much about in recovery, but that contentment is, I'm okay. I've got enough. Yes, could I get a bigger house and a bigger car? I've got enough. I'm content, and then that keeps me in that contented state of gratitude. I'm not sure if I answered your question, but that's sort
No,
of what
that
it led
was
me
that was
to.
perfect. The practice of gratitude transforms what we have into more than enough. How do I stay rooted in appreciation rather than striving for more? You know, my most successful point in my life led me to the worst part of my addiction. And it's almost it almost repels me to think of working too much now. Like, actually, it does repel me. Like, it's hard. Like, I'm not saying I don't work, but what I'm saying is that not at the sacrifice of my family, my pets, my program, my sponsor, like everything right now. Like, I have my life, and much like you were saying, it's just like I'm not willing to sacrifice my life to fit in more money. Like we have a great garden, we have reasonable vehicles. The house I built is going to outlive us, so I don't need a new house at some point, and I just one of the things I realized is that it's my addictive behavior
Mm.
to want more. Like, and then society, just like you said, society tells us we're not enough. We don't have enough. We'll be happy when, like, all these things to rob us of the present moment. And if we don't have the luxury of not being present. We need that contact with our higher power. And the only place we can get that is right now. So we can't be led astray by all these things. Like I've just really, I got myself in some financial jeopardy inside my addiction, coming in out of treatment. And it's been a real struggle. But I'm not willing, I'm not willing to lose my soul again over money, you know? And then when you speak about trusting in your higher power, a big part of when I kind of resurrendered back in March, it was also surrendering that stress about my finances. And the more that I'm capable of trusting that things will come up, they're coming up in the exact amount that my family needs right now. Like it's uncanny how perfectly things are showing up just if I'm doing the next right thing. And I want to make clear, I totally believe that that doesn't mean I don't do my work. I do my work and the opportunities arise because I'm doing the right thing. You know, like I'm a realtor, and some people see that as a salesman, but I don't. I see it as I am facilitating life position. Like you are here, you want to be there, and I will help you do that. And it's like the more I keep my clients' best interest in mind and service minded, the more they know I love them for real. You know, and that's really important to me.
Yeah, you had mentioned a couple of times, and this is one of my big things. So because you've mentioned it a couple of times, I just want to touch on it real briefly. You talked about, staying in this present moment,
Hmm.
right? And so when I got here, I came from the church, and that didn't really work for me. So I sort of left that behind. I've since returned to my, some of my childhood beliefs, but at the time I hadn't. And so I get in the program, they talk about a day at a time, day at a time. And I'm like, well, that sounds pretty interesting. And then I start listening to this New Age philosopher guy, Eckhart Tolle. I don't
Hmm.
know if you've ever listened to any of his stuff,
Yeah.
but it's the power of now, of staying in the now. And
Hmm.
then I got back into the church, and I went and listened to one of the big preachers here in Houston, and he said, the secret success of life is staying in the moment. And I said, man, here's three different entities that have nothing to do with each other that are all staying. The way to win at life is to stay in the present, the now, and the moment. And so that led me to thinking over the years, Milan, is that there has never been in my life a time other than now.
Hmm.
There's no time that exists other than right now. Right here, right now, with me and you on this podcast is
Yeah.
the only time that's ever existed. Now, people will argue with that. They'll say, no, 3 weeks ago, this thing happened to me. No, that was 3 weeks ago in the present moment. Well,
Yeah.
what about when I retire? No, that's going to be when you hit that age in the present moment. There's
Yeah.
future and past does not exist. And so my
Mm.
my disease wants to keep me in the past, in the
Mhm.
future, and keep me out of the only place that I can connect with God, and that's in the present, right here, right now. So I just
Exactly.
sort of want to throw that in because you had made several comments about
Mm.
staying present, staying in the day.
I 100% believe exactly what you just said. You know, one of the there's I think it's Bob B. He was given a speech like one of the AA old timers, and he was said, you know, he said he said you want to talk about the present moment. He said, okay. He said, think about unity. He said, before the Big Bang, everything was one, right? And the Big Bang is you know, it's still happening. The universe is still expanding. They've done measurements, you know. Well, time really is a construct by us. Like it's so that you and me can get to Starbucks at the same time, that work happens, but it doesn't really exist. Like oh, rubbing time. Oh, there she's gone. And so, you know, if time is really something we made up and the Big Bang, before the Big Bang, right? We were all one. Well, if the Big Bang's actually still happening, it means that we're still all one. And it means that you and me are unity. You know, like, and I just loved how he pulled together, you know, brushing aside our facade of time and how the present moment connects us all because we still are all one. And I thought that that was a really, when I heard that, I was like, man, that guy's got it going on. You know, after 55 years in his program, he's got something happening. And you know, and I think that that's one of the things is that like as you know, as seekers, it's like, you know, you got some perspective on presence from Eckhart Tolle. It's like as seekers, we're going to look for more philosophers in the world because there is more philosophies to glean from. And you know, and I really liked that as myself when, you know, to see an old timer who was just like, I read a lot of things about life because I'm curious about it. And I think it's great. You know, you have another question for me, Darren?
I do, and our questions pretty much are paralleling each other, but
It's
that's
great though.
fine. So yeah, the question that I had for you is somewhat similar to the question you asked before, but maybe not exactly. Is how can you tell when you're being ungrateful, and what do you do to change it?
Man, okay, so one of the things that I have now on my kitchen table, it's a God box. I don't know if you've ever heard the concept of that, where people, it's like things that you're trying to live in your will. It's like I write it down on a piece of paper and I put it in there, and it just helps give me a visual representation of giving some stuff away. Like if I've written it and it's in there, I'm not allowed to think about that. And for me, sometimes the morning can be my hardest time of transition in the day, where it's just that if I don't get enough time alone, if I'm feeling rushed, if there's something coming in for work that's like impending and I'm not like, I could feel myself out of sorts. And so one of my techniques now is to sit down and spend like 45 seconds and writing those things that I need to give away, that is like pulling me out of, like pulling me into my will and creating that discontentment, and so that's been a really helpful tool for me. And then now, like I for me it really is about getting my day started right. Like my morning is sometimes the hardest lift off, and I'm finding now implementing this two-way prayer is also giving me a template for having a better day. Like taking some of the questions about that next right thing to do, because I'm feeling like, like you put those pillars against the honest, pure, unselfish, and loving. And if your actions inside those four things, you're doing a pretty good thing at that moment, like morally good thing anyway, I think. Yeah.
Right.
And what about you?
Yeah. So I keep this thing real simple because they told me in the beginning we like to complicate everything.
Yeah.
And so I try to keep this thing like super simple. And so how do I know that I'm not in gratitude or that I'm ungrateful? It's sort of the same answer when a sponsee asks me, how do I know if I'm doing God's will? How do I know if I'm living in God's will or if I'm spiritually fit? How do I know if I'm spiritually fit? It's the same. The answer is the same for all of the questions. Am I fighting something? Because the literature says in step 10, we have ceased fighting everything and everybody,
Mm.
right? And it goes on to say, this is how we react as long as we stay spiritually fit. So I already know if I'm fighting something, whether that's like you talked about mentally in my head, I'm thinking I'm not giving this up, I'm not surrendering this, I'm constantly thinking about that, I'm fighting it in my mind, or whether I'm physically trying to manipulate an outcome that I want because things are not going in my way. If I'm fighting, if I'm struggling, then that's not God's will. Then I'm not being grateful. I'm living in my will and I'm fighting against what is happening in the present moment because I don't like it or I'm scared of it or I don't, I'm afraid of the outcome or whatever. And so that's the first part of anything is the awareness, is the recognition. Hey, you know what? I'm not trusting God. I'm fighting against this thing, right? Let me surrender this, like you talked about, and let me get back to trusting Him. And I think the way that I can pull myself out of that is the stupid little thing they told us to do in the very beginning. Make a gratitude list. Everybody hates to hear that when your sponsor says make a gratitude list. But if you're a student of the literature like I am, because that's the only place I've ever known recovery is the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. So I'm a student of that book. The doctor told me it was paramount when I first got here, in the doctor's opinion. So I studied that literature, and Bill says my main problem is I substitute negative thinking for positive thinking, right? So me and you can have 10 things going great and one thing going wrong, and that's all that I can focus on is this one crappy thing.
Yeah.
That's my alcoholism. I don't know what's with that. It's that thing in the monkeys in my brain that you talk about. They don't want to focus on all the good. They just want to focus on that one bad. And so I try to I don't physically write it out because I'm like you at work and I'm doing things, but I try to mentally stop and be like, okay, yeah, this thing sucks. I'm afraid of this thing. I'm not happy about this thing, whatever. But look, man, I got this great wife. I've got this, my daughter, these friends, a scholarship. And I literally changed my mind. I literally changed the focus from that negative thing to the positive thing. I mean, this was a great revelation for me when I got here, is that my thoughts don't have power over me. Now, at the very beginning, it was just as simple like you want to go drink, right? That your mind doesn't have the power over you. If you take the action, you control that thought. The thought doesn't control you. And so in the very beginning, that was helpful for my sobriety. But now, all these years later, it's helpful for my spiritual fitness that thought doesn't control me. If I get a thought where I'm angry, or if I get a thought where I'm ungrateful, or what, I can change my mind. I can literally, well, first I pray, right? I stop for God help me, right? Because I need God's help. And then I literally try to shift my focus. Okay, yeah, that thing sucks. I'm not happy about that. But look at all these things over here that I have going great. And immediately, it's like magic. That thing goes away. It's sort of like putting it in the God box mentally, right? It just,
Yeah.
because I now I'm like looking at reality. Because here's the thing: we have a disease that wants us to live in, not in reality. The whole
Mm-hmm.
purpose of recovery is to bring me back into reality, bring me back into now, bring me back into what's really going on. I live in the future and the past and fantasy and worry and fear and all these things. And this just brings me back into reality. And the reality is, just like this show, I've got 1,000 things to be grateful for. Why am I focusing on this one thing? That's the reality. But my mind
Mm.
doesn't want to live in reality. It wants to live in the fear, in the problem, and all that. And so I literally switched my mind back to the reality of, yeah, that thing is not going great, but look at all these things that are. And then that thing sort of just dissipates.
I love that. That's awesome. I remember you kind of touching a little bit on that in your share in Vancouver. And I was really hoping that you were going to bring that up again, because I just think it's really important for people out there, because we all get victim of the like million good things to one bad, and all we see is that one bad. And it's like it doesn't need the biggest billboard on our highway, you know. Like,
Right.
yeah. And I'm so glad. Thank you for bringing that up again,
You're
because I
welcome.
was really hoping that you were going to touch on that for everybody out there. Okay, gratitude turns the smallest moments, a breath, a smile, a call, into sacred gifts. What ordinary part of your day has become extraordinary in recovery?
And that is a great question. I mean, everything. Am I allowed just to say everything?
Yeah.
I mean, really, I mean, think about it. We miss so much. I mean, God was always around. God was always doing all the stuff, and, nature and beauty, and just, I missed it all. I'm so self-consumed. I like what you just said with the billboard of my highway. I'm so
Yeah.
self-consumed with all of these negative billboards, man, that I don't see the pretty flowers on the side of the highway. I mean, I miss all of the good stuff because I'm so focused on, well, I want to say bad things, but I'm really focused on me and why the bad things are happening to me. Because that's the root of my problem, right? Selfishness, self-centeredness. I'm
Yes.
never sitting there going, oh, my friend may not get a job. I'm worried for him. No, I'm worried for my finances. It's
Mm.
selfish and self-centeredness. And so I miss all of the beauty around me because I'm focused on all the bad things. And so today, I really try to just take in the things around me. Like when we were in Vancouver, man, let me tell you. I mean, you're from Canada, so it's probably every day for you. We don't have that beauty here. Texas is hot. I mean, we have some pretty things. We have the Riverwalk and whatever. We have some, but nothing like that. And
Yeah.
so me and my wife were just we came a day early. We went up to Whistler. I
Ooh,
mean,
yeah.
just taking in the beauty. And I would have always missed that before. I'd have been so hurried to get somewhere or to do something, or why is this not going my way? Somewhere I'd have been so focused on me or whatever, the bad things or the selfishness or whatever, I'd have missed. And so we just literally spent the whole day like just in awe of God's handiwork, the mountains and the beautiful lakes, and we stopped at the waterfall. And I mean, and that was just the one day. It's just recognizing all of the great things around me that God has given me, all of the beauty, all the great relationships, and all of that.
Yeah, for me, how what ordinary part of my day has become extraordinary recovery. I feel the same way about as you, is that it's like so much of it seems supernatural now. Like I lived here in this. Okay, so I'm coming up on 2 years for myself here this fall. And we lived on this property for just about 12 years now. So 10 to 2, the ratio. And I think I have been in more wonder and elation about the beauty that surrounds me here. Like what the ordinary part of my day, walking my dogs, is like now a magical adventure between me, the universe, and the sky, and the wind, and the connection that happens there. Like it's just not even the same experience at all. And like I relish it so much. It's my favorite thing to do now. And before it would seem like a chore because I was hungover, burned out, or whatever, and and I was too busy with work. Like where it was just like, oh shit, I got to do that now after work. I'm tired. Whereas now it's like one of the first things I start my day with, to get out there and watch that sunrise in the mountains. If you think it was beautiful where we were, gosh, my place is twice as beautiful. It's so crazy. It's amazing. Like, people come vacation here, and I feel so lucky to have the privilege to live here. Do you have another question for me?
I think I've got one more for you. How important is gratitude in your recovery?
Whew. I would say, like, man, for me it's right now it's like service, gratitude, surrender, acceptance. Those are kind of like the things that are fueling, are fueling, are like kind of like my life's purpose right now. And so, how important is it? It is beyond any importance that something had before my recovery. Like it is first of all a necessary part for me to maintain my emotional sobriety, but it's also an integral part of like my spiritual practices and my program in the day. It's part of how I pray. Like I met this lady back in March, and she really prays gratitude for everything in her life, including the struggles, you know and it has changed my days to try and implement that into my own life, because then you're not missing the benefits. Like, here's a story that I can use to relate to it. Is when I was 25, I had just built my first place. I had cut the wood, I had like the trees, I had milled the wood. I built the place with a chainsaw. 9 months later, my place burned down, chimney fire, no insurance, lost everything. Like, at the time, it was the worst thing that had happened in my life. And now I see it as one of the greatest things that happened in my life, because it freed me from Ontario. I would have been stuck with this crazy lady who ended up revealing how crazy she was afterwards. We weren't anchored to a place with like 3 kids together. Like, there was a lot of things that it allowed me to leave and to evolve in my life. And I'm so grateful for that now. And at the time, it was the worst thing ever, man. I didn't have a toothbrush, you know? Like, and it wasn't like because I didn't go to the store that day. It was because I had nothing. And so I truly believe that there's lessons in everything, and especially the hard things. Like those lessons are our vehicle for growth. And I might not like it at the time, but trying to find some kind of gratitude helps me swallow it temporarily until that lesson becomes to the surface.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
Yeah, for me, that's sort of like I talked about earlier. I think that the gratitude and humility are the key components to recovery. You know, Bill says when I harbor such feelings, he's talking about resentments, but he says such feelings. He doesn't just say resentment. So when I start harboring this discontentedness or this ungratefulness, I literally block off the power.
Hmm.
I'm telling the power, you're not good enough, you don't know enough, you don't know what you're doing. Now I'm not like consciously doing that. because I would never do that to my higher power, but I'm subconsciously doing that because I'm not trusting him. So again, it always to me links back to, am I trusting God? Because here's the thing, Milan, if you just like what you just said, and this is why I think it's so important, especially if you're new out there and you're watching this podcast. I think that gratitude is a feeling. And so when I don't feel it, then I'm not grateful. And instead of being an action, instead of being a decision, see, he says, I made a decision to trust God. I make a decision to be grateful. And part of that decision lies in the fact that God knows what he's doing and everything is exactly, nothing happens in God's universe by mistake. It's exactly the way it's supposed to be. And the reason that I bring that up is you reminded me of that with your story of your house. So when I got here, 19 years ago, my wife was filing for divorce. My little girl, I'd say like she was 5 or 6 years old. She was taking my little girl from me, and I was so angry. I was angry at God. I was angry at everybody. And so I got in here and started doing this program, and they started talking about, trusting God and gratitude and all this stuff. And I don't know how much I bought into any of it, but I didn't have any other options because life wasn't working for me. And so, but I got this false sense of realities. And the false sense of reality was, if I get in here and do all these things, God is going to fix my marriage, bring me back with my daughter, and everything is going to be wonderful. And he did not. She filed for divorce. She took my daughter. But they told me, trust God, trust God, trust God. And so what I've come to find here 19 years later, my daughter's in college. We have this unbelievable relationship. I'm married to this unbelievable woman. My ex-wife is married and happy. God knew exactly what he was doing, right? Just like your story with the house. It was exactly what I don't think I'd have been happy. I probably wouldn't have stayed sober. My daughter would have been miserable. If I would have got what I wanted or what I thought the way things should be, my life would probably not be well today. And so that sort of helps me. I don't base it on a feeling of what's going on around me. I base it on a decision of trust that God has blessed me. He's given me all these things. And even though this situation is not the way I want it to be, he knows best for me. See, there's a word, and I really want, especially if you're new and you're just connecting to this power, I want you to connect this to this word that Bill uses in the litter. He says, infinite. He says, I don't trust my finite self. That means I can see just right here in front of me. Oh, she's taking my daughter from me. She's filing for divorce. That's all I can see is finite. And I changed that to start trusting an infinite God. You know what infinite means? It means he saw me today back in 2006. He knew what was going to happen 19 years later and where I needed to be. He knew how that losing that house was going to change you and help you into the future, right? My higher power makes all things to good. I learned lessons out of it. I become more dependent on him. I surrender more, but he always makes things good. And people say, well, where do you get that in the literature? Because I follow the literature. And so if I say something and they think it's outside of the literature, then they try to call me on it. No, Bill says that. He says, we now see that when we put the things in God's hands, they worked out way better than anything we could have ever planned.
Yeah, 100%. I love that. I'm so glad to have you here today, brother, and I'm so glad that you were willing to come on. And I've got a bunch of questions left. If you're still okay to
Sure,
go, yeah.
absolutely.
Okay, great. What is your time cap? Do you have another hour, or how long do you have?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. Well, we'll go through what I got here then, and we'll just keep going. When we focus on what's missing, we lose what's present. When we focus on what's present, we find everything we need. How has gratitude helped you shift your perspective during hard times?
Well, I think too, and I think this is why it's so hard for the new person and why it was so hard for me when I was new, because I got no experience, right? They tell me to trust God, but I don't have no experience of dealing with God. Today, it's rather easy. It's like you made the comment earlier. I don't know the exact word that you used, but like you said something like phenomenon, or I don't know what the word that you use for the things that happen around me. This the miracles that happen around me. But I see those now, right? And
Mm.
early on, I just missed them and whatever. But now I've looked and I've seen all supernatural. That's the
Yeah,
word that you
super.
use,
Yeah.
right? I now see all these supernatural ways that God has done things. I mean, think about this. Let's back up for a second. This whole meeting between me and you, right?
Yeah.
I've never shared this with you, but let me back up just a second. We went to a bunch of speaker meetings, a bunch of workshops. We had a bunch of friends there at the convention, and I told my wife I want to go to one marathon meeting. And so we go to this marathon meeting. It's full, bro. They turn us away. It's full. Oh man, I really wanted to go to this marathon, well, at least one while I was here. And so we look on the schedule, we find this 3:15 gratitude meeting. It's way across town, like a mile wide. I gotta walk all the way over there. All right, let's go. So we walk all the way over there, and then that's the meeting that you're talking about of how we met. I
Mm.
just happen to be sitting in the front. You just happen to be sitting in the front. That leaders just happen to not be showing up. See, today I realized that's supernatural. It's not just these things just
Yeah.
coincidentally happened,
Mm-hmm.
that we were destined to meet, and that's the way God supernaturally works things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so going back to your original question, that's how I have the experience of showing that God has shown me all these things that he's taken care of. So it's fairly easy for me now to, okay, even though I don't like this, I know you've got this. I'm not sure
Mm.
if that answered your question, but it just brought
I
back
think
the
so.
supernatural comment that you
Yeah.
brought up.
And another thing too I'd like to add is that that was the first meeting my daughter ever shared at in her life. And that meant a lot to me. When I leaned over and I was like, ask her, please. Because I knew if I asked her, she was going to
She
say
wouldn't do
no.
it.
Yeah. And she got up and did it. She did it like a champ, man. She just expressed
Yeah.
real honest gratitude. She was having her own mystical adventure that day. And almost actually every day there. Like, that was the greatest spiritual adventure I've ever been on. Like, I just had so many amazing occurrences, and us getting to chair a meeting at that conference, like, that was just amazing. Like, I gotta
Hmm.
say, like, that it was, first of all, like, we were fun. It was a fun meeting,
Yeah.
and like, it was fun, and it was just it was like natural to both of us to get up there and do that. And it was like people would have thought we showed up together. It was like
Yeah.
boom.
Right.
It was like we were just like brothers right away up there, and I just loved that. Okay, so when we focus on what's missing, we lose what's present. When we focus on what's present, we find everything we need. How has gratitude helped me shift my perspective during hard times? You know, it's allowed me to pray gratitude for the struggles. Like part of like my morning prayers are, thank you for the love that's replacing anger. Thank you for the faith that's replacing fear. Thank you for the struggles that are continuing to help me grow inside this program. And I can, while I'm praying, like, that's one of the beautiful things about faith, is that faith builds faith. Like, the best thing about faith is it breeds more faith. Like, and so it's like I now can reflect on where having that gratitude has changed. Like, it has changed my moments, and it's also changed my future. It points me in a different direction, recalibrates me. And I'm not saying that I am perfect or that I can feel awesome all the time, but I'm saying now that that discontentment lasts way less period of time, and I'm much quicker to look for a lesson versus just throw a pity party. Because one of the things through my step work is that I realized I used to be the prince of pity parties. I was a master pity. I was like, man, I gotta have a pity party, and like, man, we could pity party all day. Oh, you're getting divorced, Darrin? I think I want to get divorced. I would like be lamenting my divorce before my divorce even started. Like, I could make your pity my party. Like, and and so now, like, it's a much more like heartfelt thing to replace pity with gratitude, you know? And I just think it's magic. Okay, I got another question for you. Gratitude is the pause between fear and faith, the breath that reminds us we're okay. How do you access gratitude in moments of emotional or spiritual pain?
Wow. Well, so you had made a comment. You said growth, right? And my
Mm.
my sponsor calls it another effing growth opportunity, an AFGO. But I'm not a big fan of growing through spiritual pain, but unfortunately, that's how it works. So I just go with that.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things that helped me. So early on, I had a few months sober, and I met this guy from California, and he ran a treatment center out there, and he literally said one of the most transformative things that I've ever heard in this program. He said, everything that I go through, good and bad, God's trying to teach me something, right? And so the book talks about I have to have a psychic change, and we don't really know what the psychic change, but the psychic change is just I think different, right? And so when I got here, when I think something happened, I'm like, why is this happening to me? Just like you talked about the pity party. I can't believe this is happening to me. Why is this poor me? Today, those same things happen to me, and not that they don't get me thrown off a little bit, or I don't get in some fear or whatever, but I immediately, instead of going into pity party or why me or all this, I go in, okay, God, what are you trying to teach me? What is the growth that, what do I need to learn? Do I need to do something different? Or are you just trying to teach me to trust you? Right? Do I need to make a change? What is going on? What are you trying to, because God takes every bad situation and tries to grow me. Like you said, he tries to make me better and stronger and more spiritual. And so that's what I do to try to shift my thinking. I think is I'm answering your question now, to shift my thinking to, okay, God, what are you trying to show me? What do I need to learn out of this? How can I grow out of
Mm.
this? Right? It all comes down to what one of my first sponsors, I think it was my second sponsor, I'd call him, and I was early on, like you, and I'd bitch about everything and cry, and all my life is horrible, and this, that, and that. And he was patient. He would listen to me, and at the end of it, he would say, "Okay, that's fine. Are you going to be part of the problem or part of the solution?" And he said it so many times, Milan, that it stuck with me. And so today, I'll get, okay, are you going to be part of the problem or the solution? You
Mm.
going to live in the pity and poor me, or are you going to look and trust God and say, okay, what are you trying to show me? What do I need to grow?
Mm.
Where do I need to learn? Where do I need to get better? Or what do I need to let go of? What do I need to surrender? What are you
Mm.
trying to teach me here?
Mm. I love that. I love that, just that phrase, you know? You want to be part of the problem or part of the solution. That's amazing. So, how has gratitude helped me? Oh, hold on. Sorry. How do I access gratitude in moments of emotional or spiritual pain? You know, one of the things that is happening for me right now is I was listening to somebody and they were talking about doing a step 4 on beliefs versus resentments. And how that there's a lot of like childhood beliefs that we hold on to that are just as limiting as our resentments, you know? And something that I've recently uncovered is that from growing up in a really rough city where I had to fight all the time, or I had, like bullying to deal with, became bullying because that was the cycle, and is that part of me feels like people are attacking me. People that I love, when they're talking to me, I will get defensive and react as if they're attacking me, like as if I could just erase the prospect that they might be loving me or whatever. And so one of the things now is that I'm I'm trying to step back in those moments, kind of take a breather and kind of try to give gratitude for these people and their various loving attributes, to say, hey, like, they're not here to attack me. Like, that's right here. Like, I might not like the way that they're talking to me, but it doesn't mean that they're intending me pain through that. And so it's kind of a real current struggle where I'm because I'm in the midst, like I'm doing currently starting another set of steps, And it's, like for me, the steps have been like peeling an onion. You know, how an onion's kind of translucent and you could see that the next layer's rotten, but you don't know exactly what that rot looks like until you peel off this layer. And and so it's just a journey of self exploration that I'm enjoying. You know.
I like that you said belief there. Yeah. So I picked up a sponsee. I have a sponsee that has like twice as much time with me. His name is Eric C. Shout out to Eric C. in Houston. But he's got like 25 or 28 years over, a lot more time than me. But his sponsor passed away, the sponsor he had originally. And so he asked me to sponsor him, and I'm taking the steps. And we both helped each other and learned a lot. But he has a saying that he says all the time. It says, and it's straight from the big book. It said, I had to let go of the old ideals, right? The results were nil until we let go of these old ideals. Absolutely, right? And then in another part in the doctors, he says, I'm trying to take the ideas, the emotions, and the guiding forces of these men's lives and change them to something. So the ideas, the beliefs,
Hmm.
those weigh me down as well. I've got this fixed belief system, these fixed ideas, and literally I have to start over. I mean, and that's really one of the things that helped me early on with the God thing, because
Hmm.
I was raised up in the church and told you had to believe X, Y, and Z, and I believed X and Z, but not necessarily Y. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so I was in a therapy session. So I had a therapist and a sponsor when I first got here, and the therapist said something to me that was life changing, almost like what Bill told Debbie. But I hadn't gotten in the literature yet. But she said, you need to let go of all of that, let go of those old ideas,
Hmm.
and start over. And she said this to me, and it forever changed my life. She said, you're never going to be able to turn your will and the care of your life over to their God. See, it's their God. It's not my God. I have all
Yeah.
these old beliefs, these old ideas,
Yeah.
and I'm hanging on to those, and I'm never going to fully trust that God because it's not mine. So I
Yeah.
had to let go of all these old ideas, these old beliefs, like you're talking about, and
Hmm.
come up with my own conception of God. He's kind, he's loving, whatever, so that
Hmm.
I could believe in the X, Y, and the Z altogether and fully surrender to this power. So I think it's super important what you're talking about of letting go of this old belief system,
Hmm.
or doing a four step. That's new for me. I've never heard that, but the concept's still the same
Hmm.
of looking at all these, what am I hanging on to in this old belief
Yeah.
system that's still weighing me down?
And for me, it's it was described. It was like a guy who had. It was like somebody I think with 36 years on a speaker tape I was listening to, and he hadn't discovered this. He was like, I was 20 years into my program, and there was just still something blocking me, you know. And I feel for myself, just some of the things he said in that talk. I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm like, I believe that. Like when he would say some stuff, I could remember the point in my childhood where I started believing that. Like it took me like right to that point of like, whether it's you're ugly or if you really knew me you wouldn't love me. Like all these things. And so a big part of that journey, it's like your step four, but it's the awareness. Like how I think like we're all the masters of our own self sabotage. I do not know an alcoholic or addict who's not, you know, and part of that is because I'm not worth it. Is one of those beliefs, and uh, and I just don't want to be living there anymore. You know?
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly right. And Bill warns us about that, right? I mean, there's chaos that happens around me that I don't have any control about, and I have to walk
Mm,
through that.
yeah,
But 99%, I deliberately manufacture the chaos, right? It's
yeah,
exactly what you just said. And he
mm,
says we avoid the deliberate manufacture of chaos, right? And
yeah,
so there's enough chaos without me trying to manufacture it. But
mm,
I do believe that. I do believe that that's the reason I relapsed in the first three and a
mm,
half years is that
yeah,
self-sabotage is everything
mm,
is so good, but look at all the things that I did before I got here, and maybe I don't deserve this good wife and this good.
exactly.
I don't know that I like consciously thought that, but somewhere underneath in the subconscious, I, I think that maybe I did believe in some of that
Mm.
old belief system, right?
It's the underlying beliefs that are really making us self-sabotage in that way. Like how many times you've been like, why did I just do that? Like life was going freaking amazing. You
Right.
know, like whether it was like screw up a presentation for work or whatever it was, there's like just these little turning points where it's like, I don't deserve this getting better, and you do something, you know, and it, for sure, I don't think it's conscious, but I do believe we can bring it to conscious level.
For sure.
You
For
know, like
sure.
we can
Yeah.
part that at, like, you know, it's like going into our resentments and seeing our part after years of thinking like, man, I was the master at blaming everybody around me in my
Right.
addiction. And then it's like when I did my first step forward, I was like, oh my God, like I am the one fabricating all this pain and I'm blaming it all on them, you know?
Well, if you think about it, I mean, you've heard this a lot if you've been in recovery long, is that the journey from the head to the heart. But I
Mm,
mean, if you really think about that logically, isn't that the journey from the subconscious to the conscious? It's the
yeah,
same thing, right? It's
yeah.
those things that are hidden down in my soul and my heart, bringing them to the awareness of my consciousness, right?
Mhm.
And so, and this is a little deeper and probably another topic for another podcast. But think about this: I've got this little still part of my mind that wants me to go drink again
Yep.
somewhere. I don't think about it consciously. I never think about drinking,
Yep.
but I really seriously think about it's trying to get me to self sabotage these things so that life gets so
Mm.
bad that maybe I'll go back to start thinking about drinking, right? Because drinking is not the problem until it's the problem, right?
Yeah.
So I gotta like stop the deliberate manufacture of the chaos, the self sabotage, the all of these things to stay spiritually fit so that I don't get into this place of restless, irritable discontentedness where my mind goes back to the solution for that
Mhm.
is alcohol, right?
Mhm. I think we should do another episode on self-sabotage and chaos. I think
That would be great.
that would be fun. I think I
Yes.
easily feel like we could just go whoop and go for go
Yeah.
for you know, and just kind of explore our own discovery in those areas
Right.
about it, you know. Okay, you ready for another question?
Yes, sir.
Okay, a grateful heart is a humble heart, aware that none of this was earned and none of it is owed. How has humility enhanced your sense of gratitude in long term recovery?
And that's a great question. And we've talked about that a little bit
Mm,
before. I really believe that they go hand in hand. I don't think you can
mm,
have humility and not be grateful. And I don't think you can
mm,
be grateful and not have humility. I think they go hand in hand, right? And I think again, it's that whole recognition of that it's all a God thing. I mean, I'm glad that I have clear cut directions in the book, right? And it says when I get, rest, irritable, and content, when I get down, when I'm, feeling less than, then I have to turn back to God and all that. But he also talks about when I start thinking, look at me, I'm doing something. I'm the big shot. I've got all this time. I'm the manager of my company. That the way to get rid of the big shotism is the same answer of that humility of, hey, you know what? I don't deserve any of this. I didn't do any. God has given me all this. Now, I did a little work to make myself ready to receive it, but
mm,
He's the one that has given me this wife and this job and all that, and that humility, right, helps me to realize it's not me, it's Him, and then also then that because of that, it perpetuates this gratitude of, oh man, I'm so grateful God has blessed me with all these things that I don't deserve.
amazing. I love that answer. I thought that as soon as I hit this question, I was like, oh, this fits right in with Darrin for sure. A grateful heart is a humble heart, aware that none of this was earned and none of it is owed. How has humility enhanced my sense of gratitude in long term recovery? Well, first of all, I'd like to say that I'm not in long term recovery yet, but you know, I'm on my way, and I'm I'm just so grateful to be in it. You know, like I'm just so grateful I didn't die not get coming into the program. You know, like I feel like the last, you know, 22 months has been the greatest part of my life. Really. You know, like it's the first time I've lived free in any respect inside myself, you know. Um, but humility, you know, like without humility, I never would have been able to actually see my part in my moral inventory. Like, I feel that it would have just kept me from the level of honesty that I took inside that first step for,
Hmm.
and like all the steps have brought in freedom. But like I said earlier, is it hurts to rip that scar off the heart as much as to put the scar on. And
Right.
going into my life and reliving those things, like you said that you thought you were going to take to the grave, that were just unspeakable until then. But also to take those all those events and to take the blame off all the other people on them and to actually see my part, like that process created a life that I can't unsee. Like forever until the day I die, when I do any of that, if I do any of that, I will know my part in what I'm doing. You can't, like, I'm a musician, and so when I learn something new, I call it like looking into a room. Like I could play something better than I've ever played it for a night, maybe because I practiced more or something, and I call it seeing the room. You look through a window of a room, you can never unsee that room. If you close your eyes, you're going to know what that room looks like till the day you die. But it's like that with recovery, where it's like when I see something, even just the awareness of it, I can't undo that awareness. I can't hide from myself that truth that I've now found. And humility allows me to go deeper into that, you know?
Right.
And and
Yeah.
and and for that I am eternally grateful.
Right.
Like,
You, yeah, you made a comment. You said long-term sobriety. So, and I think I said it earlier. The
yeah.
highest level I'm ever going to achieve in this program is human, but
Hmm.
also too the record, right? Do you know what the record, right, is for recovery, right? The record.
24 hours.
It's 24 hours. And so, we laugh about that a little bit, but it's so true.
Mm.
It's like I heard a man early on, I probably had 6 months sober, and he had 10 years and he had relapsed and he come back and he was picking up a sour chip. And he said, I had 10 years, but not enough days. And that floored me. I can't unsee that.
Yeah.
Like you said,
Yeah.
I'll never not unsee that picture of him saying that. And my sponsor, I think my sponsor's I always get it wrong, but I think he's got 25. But he tells me all the time, man, it don't matter what I did these last 25 years. What am I doing today? And I'm
Mm.
grateful that I'm reminded of that, because I don't want to rest on my
Mm.
laurels of what I
Yeah.
did these last 15 years,
Mm.
thinking, oh, I'm going to have a spiritual bank account. Like you said, that doesn't exist. There's nowhere in the literature talks
Mm.
about a spiritual bank account. It talks about I have today. What am I doing today for my
Mm.
recovery? Right. And and now, don't get me wrong. The longer you're here, the more experience you have, right? The
Mm.
more, things that you learn per se. But me and you are the same as far
Mm.
as we've got 24 hours, and we both have to live. We're both just as susceptible of cutting off the power and going back and drinking as anybody. We just we're all on this even playing field of today. So I sort of like to look at it like that.
Mm.
It's like we all just have today.
I would like to add though that for me, one thing I feel like, is that I used to hope I was going to do well in sobriety. And now I feel that, like, after so many days lined up of doing the exact same thing and bringing myself to my own emotional sobriety inside there, it's like I have faith that if I live my program and my life as I have been, that I'm going to get another day today. It's if I stopped. If I stop, I got no guarantee. But honestly, I feel that, if I get up and I'm praying and I'm treating my body good and I'm being of service to the world and I'm living my program like, what I found to be like fills my cup, you know, I'm not afraid, like I have faith in my program, just like I have faith in my higher power, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And like I feel, when they say, when you say alcohol's a symptom, it's like my problem is me, but I'm not relenting on working on me. I mean, part of us getting together today is to share ideas,
Right.
about ways of thinking and things to do that enhance our chance of remaining straight, or just growing. And I feel that if we're in a state of growth, we're growing away from the problem, and we're
Right.
growing towards the solution.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I think, and you're so right, but I think it's just it's a deeper. Maybe that's our third episode we do together. But this whole thing of the spiritual part of this whole deal, right? Because I think a lot of people, especially when you're new, at least I know for me, I didn't understand the dynamics of how this worked, right? And so let me just humor me for a couple minutes. So he
Yeah.
says in the beginning, lack of power was my dilemma, right? And obviously, we know that if we got here, we couldn't stop, right? But he makes a comment after that. He says the main purpose of this book is to enable us. So enable means that I'm not able. There's another part later on. He's going to say we were self-deceived and incapable. So I'm not able and I'm incapable of receiving this grace, right?
Mm.
So there's a power out there that's always wanted to help me, but I'm unable and I'm incapable, right? Then he says what the purpose of the 12 steps is. So a lot of people have been in the 12-step program for 20 years and don't even know there's a purpose for the steps. And what he says is the main purpose of the 12 steps are to make ready for me to receive the grace of God.
Mm.
Remember, he says in another part, we never cleaned house enough so that the grace of God could come in.
Mm.
When I harbor the resentments, I block off. So you're exactly right. This whole program is about keeping me spiritually fit, working on me to where I'm in a place to be open to be able to receive the Creator
Mm.
and not having self block off this connection and causing me to lose the power. But like I say, that's probably another 2 hour show somewhere else down the
You know what? I'm going to
line.
write it down. I'm going to write it down for us as just as conscious contact.
Yeah.
I think we could call it that, and we could go deep on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Woo, you better pull out your calendar when we're done here because I'm going to
All
book you
right.
solid. Okay. Where are we go? Okay. Gratitude doesn't erase pain. It brings light to it. What pain in your past now feels touched by grace?
Wow. So a lot of people, Milan, probably have to really think hard. I do not.
Mm.
Mine is super, super easy, right? So let me fill in a little bit of the blanks of my story that I told you
Mm.
earlier.
Mm.
I had almost 4 years sober. I was 2 weeks away from being married. I mean, literally 2 weeks for our marriage. I
Mm.
was the president of the treatment center of the Alumni Board Treatment Center. I was vice president of Texas area of another program. I had 13 sponsees. I mean, I am Mr. Recovery, and I relapsed. And bro, you talking about shame, guilt, destruction of everything around me. I mean, it's just horrible. It was literally one of the worst parts of my life. I would not wish that upon anybody. Right? I lost all my
Mm.
sponsees. I lost all my service positions. I didn't know if my wife was going to stay with me. I mean, it was horrible, horrible to me. And so today, right, to answer your question, it's that because I look today, I am super grateful for that relapse. People
Mm.
are like, man, you're so on fire with this program. You live this program. You stay in the book. You try to really, help. I do that because I already know what's going to happen to me. God already
Mm.
showed me if you don't do this deal, that you're going to go back to doing what you do. You're going to
Mm.
go use again,
Mm.
right? And so I am extremely grateful for the relapse. And I know you probably don't get too many people around that make that comment, but it was a really eye-opening thing for me of, okay, I have to do this thing on a daily basis. I have to surrender to God. I have to follow these clear cut directions. Left to my own devices, I'm going to go get drunk tomorrow. It's what I
Mm.
do. And
Mm.
so God took that horrible thing and taught me the biggest lesson of my sobriety. And then today, that is literally the thing that I'm most grateful for.
You know, I've actually had one other friend say that same thing. That if they didn't have that relapse, they weren't on the right path of I don't want to say good sobriety, but like strong recovery. You know, and I believe it. For me, what pain in my past now feels touched by grace, and so I I've never told you this, but 21 months and 3 days before that conference started in Vancouver, up one floor and about 40 feet over from where we had that meeting, my heart stopped in a hotel room from me partying too much.
Wow.
And that was my turning point. Now, I
Mm.
had not been back to that hotel since. Um, I thought the entire conference was down by the water. Like, you know how you just said to everybody here, to everybody out there who's listening, most of the conference was down by the ocean.
Mhm.
And Fairmont also has a hotel that's about 6 blocks up the hill. I showed up at the Pacific Rim. I too wanted to go to a marathon meeting, but I wanted to go in the middle of the night. So one of the first night that they had the marathon meetings, I had fell asleep at 8 p.m., woke up at 1:23, got downtown for 1:50. I was like, I'm going all night. Like I was so excited to go to the marathon meetings. So I get down to the Pacific Rim by the ocean, and they're like, no, nobody's there. And I'm like, oh, they're go to the other hotel. So here I am, and it literally, my heart, this whole thing happened at 2 a.m. for me. And so I'm walking up from 10 to 2 a.m. as I'm getting to this hotel. Like literally same time. I can see the room I was in when this happened. By the time I get to the hotel, I'm like sweating. I'm like goosebumps. I'm like shaking. I'm pretty much almost in tears. And I walk into a marathon meeting, and it was in that big room there, like that held 1,500 people. There was like about 35 people, 33, 35 people. I don't even get to sit down, and they're like, no, you come up and share. I'm like, oh shit, you know. And what I realized in my share, because first of all, I realized, thank you, universe, for letting me share at that moment, because I needed to let something out. But was that was my turning point. You know, like my life was not going to change without that heart stopping and that happening. And so that pain, like that whole experience has brought me to the greatest life I've ever known. And if that didn't happen, I wouldn't have listened to anything else. I wasn't listening to my family's interventions. I wasn't listening to my friends that were scared for me. I wasn't listening to anybody except for my addiction, and when I woke up from that, it was as if I had like a forced universal surrender. It was like, it's over. I remember it's over being said in my head. And I remember there being like this peace, like I haven't had a compulsion or desire to use since. And so for me, it was a massive thing that changed from that. And then me getting up there to tell my story that night, and how this whole thing was coming back to ground zero and a turning point. And then afterwards, a guy came up to me. He wasn't much younger than me. Uh, Everybody looks a bit younger than me, I feel like these days. Like now I'm like, okay, like I used to know like what somebody from 15 to 25 looked like, and now everybody looks young, and it's all right. And so he comes up to me and he said, somebody, I just came into recovery 3 weeks ago, and maybe this is my turning point. Somebody gave me a free ticket. And
Yeah, and so I want you to think about this, like maybe after the podcast later
yeah.
on,
Mm,
just to bring this into your consciousness, because you
mm,
made a comment earlier about supernatural,
mm,
but that's what that was, right? I
mm.
mean, think about this. This is just reminders from our higher power, because the book says we can't remember the pain and suffering of a week or a month ago,
Oh,
right? And
I
so
can.
if I'm not plugged into conferences and meetings and sponsees and the fellowship and recovery, maybe I forget that I almost died in that hotel. But when I'm
Mm-hmm.
plugged in, God is always giving me reminders, right?
Yeah.
God is always giving me reminders. He's constantly reminded, hey, you remember that back, almost 16 years ago when you relapsed? Look, because I'm seeing all these other people and these places. So if I'm available, God is going to bring to my conscience these reminders of, look, Milan, this is where you almost
Mm.
died. Look,
Yeah.
this is where I brought your life today. Look, now you're here
Mm-hmm.
with your daughter, you're sober, like your life is wonderful. Don't forget that you almost died up in that
Mm-hmm.
hotel. I really believe that God is trying to always remind me if I'm open to
Yeah.
him.
Yeah. And it's also like showed me how that pain and that turning point is my vehicle to be of service to others.
Right,
Like that guy needing me to say that night, needing me to go through that pain again and crying up at the podium and everything. Like by the end of my share, I was bawling, man. I had nothing,
right,
there was nothing I could hold back, and I didn't want to. Like in fact, ever since that night, I could cry at the drop of a dime now, and I never could cry my whole life. It was really like I thought I had I thought I had resolved whatever feelings I had about that night, and that
right,
quickly has taught me that I have not even come close to that. You know, and like they they call it the gift of desperation, and I am happy to still know what that feels like. I really am. Like I don't have any desire to go back to that life, and still feeling that intense about it. It is absolutely one of the tools that is keeping me away from it.
right.
Like I'm not resting on laurels. I got more willingness now than I had when I started. Like I'm just more in love with it all now. Like even this, like having these conversations, I feel like I get like to go to like college or university of recovery every day. Like because when you go to a meeting, how many times do you hear someone share and you're like, man, I wish we could just talk about that for a minute.
Right.
And that's what this is, like this is like going deep on gratitude with Darrin and Milan today. And it's just it's so much more than a 3-minute share. Like and I'm not belittling meetings. What I'm saying
Right.
is
Right.
that my seeker need for more information gets well fed from this platform you know and I still listen to all kinds of other people's
Right.
speaker tapes and podcasts. Like it's not just about me. It's just I'm real happy when I get to ask a question and find out the answer. Like,
Uh, I remember I was listening to the speaker. I literally think he had like 35 years sober. I mean, and the number of years is important just because of what he said. And he said, as Fonzie asked him, why, after 35 years, why do you still have a sponsor and why do you still call your sponsor all the time? And he
mm,
said, I replied back because I'm sponsorable.
yeah.
And so I always remember that he was at 35 years, he was still sponsorable, he was still teachable. And so I'm
Mm,
like you, man. I try to learn from the new guy, from the old timer, from tapes, books, and conventions. I think that God is always trying to help me grow
mm,
and learn and be better. But like we sort of talked about earlier, how much do I miss that? How much do I miss this information that God's trying to help me, right? And so I think that the people that are teachable in this program are the people that do the best because
mm.
God is constantly trying to teach us if we're sponsorable or teachable, right?
Like one of the things I really loved about the conference was that you know it 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 wasn't like very many people showed up on a free 3-week ticket like that guy. Like a lot of people had to dedicate part of their life, part of their summer, part of their planning, part of everything to
Right.
get there. The people who were there, a lot of them were seekers.
Mhm.
Like it was like heavy percentage seekers. Like there was so much great conversation to be had if you were just open enough to turn and ask people beside you, hey, where are you from, what's going on, like
Yeah.
I like, for me, the real magic was in the conversations in between the things,
Right.
like
Right.
I like, because there's just no way that the organization of AA could could just hand select the best magic in the universe, because your best
Mhm.
magic isn't my best magic, isn't hers best magic. Like, but they brought the best magic together, and it was
Yeah.
up to us to interact. And man, I was just loving it.
Well, if you think about this, I mean, you hit the nail on the head, right? A, I'm an alcoholic. B, probably no human power can help me. And C, that God can and He will. He could and He would if He were sought. And so that's it. You just said it. It's the seekers who find God. It's the seekers who get, you know, the blessings of
Mm.
God and the relationships and the knowledge. But normally, before I got here, I'm seeking every day. I'm seeking, but I'm seeking me. I'm seeking
Yeah.
my gains, my selfish motives. Me. I'm not
Mm.
thinking about coming on a podcast with you or helping a sponsee or listening to what somebody's talking about in a meeting and then going up to them afterwards and say, "Hey, would you like somebody to talk to about that?" Or I'm
Mm.
not ever seeking those things. I'm seeking me. And so I like the word that you use there, seeker, because it says God
Mm.
can and He will if I seek Him. And
Mm.
that's how I seek God. I seek God through other people, through those means. So that's pretty
And
cool.
being a seeker, like if he were sought doesn't mean looking for occasionally once every Friday between 7 and 8, and not thinking about the program
Exactly.
between, like, seeking, like being sought is like a concerted effort to find. It's not a casual thing. And I could tell, like, I call it, what I call it for me is recovery fever. I got
Mm.
recovery fever and I'm burning up because I love it. I'm burning up because I love it. I'm looking for it all the time. And when I find other people who evidently, like, this is a life or death thing for me, like literally death or life, and some people can have a casual recovery and that's their recovery, but I can't live that way. I know I won't stay alive that way. I've never been a medium. I've been on or off, and
Right.
like I can't be a casual recovery person who doesn't actually take all the suggestions, or I'm gonna die. And I'm okay with that, because I love the entire process. So, you know, I've embraced it, and it's changed me, and that just keeps feeding the growth and the action and the reciprocation of it.
Yeah, and I think Bill knew that. I mean, he tells us at the very end of his story, right? Faith has to work 24 hours a day in and through us or we perish. Exactly what you just said. If
Mm,
I'm not constantly thinking about what's the next right thing, okay,
mm,
what does God want me to do? What is God trying to teach me? Okay, why am I not spiritually fit right now? Because I'm angry. If I'm not constantly thinking about working on me and recovery, then my mind automatically is going to go to why is this happening to me, for me, these people don't care about me. My mind's not going to stay idle. It's like you said, I'm all or nothing. I'm one
mm,
of the I'm either trying to follow God, recovery, these spiritual principles, or I'm following me, my selfishness, my fear, my self-pity, one of the
mm,
two. And so you're 100% on. The people that I see that do well in this program are the people, because look, this let's be real, Milan. Let's be
mm,
real. Let's tell the newcomer the truth today. He says this is a manner of living. This is not a checkbox of, oh, I went to a meeting today. I called my sponsor. That's what I was doing in my first 4 years when I
mm,
relapsed. No, this is a manner of living.
mm,
And you said it earlier. Some of the manner of living is recovery stuff. It's going to do service work. It's helping us. But some of the manner of living is helping my daughter, helping my mother, helping the lady at the store. This is a manner of living of me trying to do what I think God would have me to do. And
mm,
that has to happen throughout my whole day. Now, am I perfect at it? Do I do it 24 hours a day? No, but I try to. I mean,
mm,
this is what I tell my sponsees. I try to be the best husband I can be. I really try to treat my wife kind, and if you ask her, she'll tell you, yeah, on most days he's really good. But even on the days that I'm not, let's say I come home tired and I snap at her because I'm tired. it's like that you talked about it earlier. I got this awareness now. This God conscious is like within 15 minutes, I'm like, man, I shouldn't have done that. That's not what God wants me to do. And I'm like
Mm,
immediately going, baby, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have snapped. It's just it's a manner of living. This is I have to be living this thing
mhm.
on a daily basis to allow this power to come in and transform my life. So I really appreciate you talking about that. But that's probably our fourth show
Mhm.
right there.
Manner of living. Um, I wanted to add to that too is that, in that manner of living, it's like for me, it's about it's about rest. It's about taking care of my body too. It's about trying to eat the right things because all those things factor in to how I show up. Like if I am underslept, if I like what I've learned inside my recovery is if I'm underslept, I am 5 times as quick to anger and way less patient and way less likely to have the discipline inside my program. Like fatigue is something that I have to watch. And so, it's all, it's one of the things when I'm talking to my sponsees, I'm like, how you sleeping? How you sleeping? What are you eating? Are you getting your blood flowing at all? I'm like, because there's a bunch of shit built up inside us we got to get rid of. We got to get that blood flowing.
Well, think about that, Lon. And not to get too diverted from the topic of today's meeting, but if what you say is true, which I 100% believe that it is, Bill in the very beginning says the people that do not recover are the people that can't get honest with themselves. Now, we
Hmm.
automatically think that's about am I an alcoholic or not? And it is in the first step, but he's like, that get honest with myself, I want to recover. And so, to your point, right? So Milan gets angry this day. The old Milan would just say, "Yeah, I got angry because these people are idiots, or they did this or that, or
That's right.
whatever." But the new Milan is like, "Okay, hold on. Why did I get angry? Did I not get enough sleep? Was I
Mm.
hungry? Have I not been praying enough?" And that's
Well,
being honest with yourself, right? And
yeah.
those are the people that recover. And I think we miss that in this thing. We think it's about not drinking and going to meetings. No, it's about me looking inside of me and being like, okay, why did I do that? What's really going on with me? And
Yeah.
that's the things that I'm talking about my sponsor with is like, okay, not just that I felt this way, but why did I feel that way? What can
Hmm.
I do in the future not to get back in that position? It's that inner growth of being honest with myself about what's really going on. So I really appreciate you talking about that
Yeah.
and relating to sleep. Yeah.
And I just want to say one other thing, only because it's your first time on. If we go on a sidetrack thing, it's all good. Like we're here for a conversation. The starting point is gratitude. The ending point is wherever our hearts, minds, and spirits take us. So gratitude is the gateway to serenity. It shifts our focus from control to acceptance. How has gratitude helped you let go of something you used to fight?
That's a good question. And again, I think, the more I do this and the more that things work in my favor, the more I have faith, right? Faith to me is I mean, I guess the definition of faith is belief in the unseen, but for me, it's like faith builds on faith. When I see God take care of this little thing here, right? Okay. Then when this little bigger things, I've got a little bit more faith. I mean, I'd have 100% more faith, but then He takes care of that, and okay, my faith increases by 2%, right? And so I think that's been the way over the years is that I just see, you know, God taking care of things, right? And I use this gratitude of, okay, God, you've taken care of these past 10 things. Even though I'm not sure about this one, I know you're going to take care of that. And that, that humility and that gratitude of just trusting that He's taking care of everything else. Why wouldn't He take care of this? Sort of changes my mindset. I'm not sure if I answered your question, but that's what came to mind.
I think you answered it beautifully. That was amazing. How has gratitude helped me let go of something I used to fight? You know, uh, I really used to, like I've said, I had a lot of worries about finances. It got really close to losing our house this spring, and you know, um, I realized that I'm pretty attached to staying in this house right at this point in my life. Like I have created the expectation that it stays ours, and that's an expectation that I've definitely had some trouble releasing. But one of the things that have been successful is, praying gratitude, that I'm still in the house now. Like living in the worry that I'm not in the house in the future isn't doing anything but wasting time that I could be spending keeping my house, you know,
Right.
and um, and like praying gratitude that my finances are getting better. Not at my timeline, but they are getting better, and having gratitude in those moments has really let me let go a lot of surrender a lot of that anxiety, and that was eating up too much of my brain. It was
Right.
it was almost it was almost to a crippling point, and now it's really it's gratitude and surrender have helped that such an extreme level. Okay, I got one more question here. You up for
Okay.
one more? Okay.
Yes, sir.
In the end, gratitude isn't about what we have, it's about who we've become. Who are you today that your past self never could have imagined? And how does that make you feel?
Good gosh, man. So I'm just gonna be honest with you, man. I did not think this thing was gonna work for me. I didn't I didn't think this thing they tricked me on an intervention. I did not want to be sober. I didn't think it was gonna work for me. And man, if you'd have told me that I would have been, sober almost 16 years, I said, you're crazy. But now I realize that it's not even that. It's these relationships with my wife and my daughter, and I'm employable and all of those things. I couldn't have. If you would ask me in 2006, hey, do you think you can make it a week sober? I'd have been like, man, you're out of your mind. There's no way I can go a week sober. And so today, it's not even about staying sober. I don't even think about drinking. It's so, I'm just I'm just floored when I look at everything that God has given me. I mean, and I'm like you, Milana. Maybe I can leave you with a little bit of hope, right? And some other people that are out there.
Mm-hmm.
2 years into my first sobriety, when I first got here, I had to file bankruptcy.
Mm-hmm.
I had my wife. I gave my wife the house, the car, the everything. I literally had the clothes on my back, and I didn't have a job, and I couldn't recover from that. And I had the 2 years file bankruptcy. Today, right? Some 17, 18 years later, I'm not like rich and but I'm comfortable. God has
Mm-hmm.
taken care of my finances. He's taking care of everything, right? He literally, if I do, if I stay close to him and perform his work well, like the book says, he takes care of my finances. He takes care of the relationships. He takes care of everything. And so, man, to me, to look where I came from, I mean, almost homeless and had nothing, to friends and work and family, and it's just amazing. And so I'll end with this, with the quote that Bill said when Ebby came: the age of miracles are still upon us, man. It is a miracle that me and you are even alive, because
Yeah.
from our stories, but that have all these blessings. You got your own place, your daughter, man. I've got all these friends and family and job, and I mean, God is just good all the time. And
Mm-hmm.
so, yeah, recovery, this 12 steps, man, this thing has literally, the power that I choose to go, God has literally transformed me into, it's almost like in the doctor's opinion, where he talks about the guy met the guy and he didn't even know him anymore. He was like a
Mm-hmm.
totally different person. He recognized his face, but from there, that's it. That's all he even recognized about the guy.
Mm-hmm.
That's me. It's like people, when I first got, wouldn't even recognize me today. God has just so blessed me because I followed the clear cut directions,
Mm-hmm.
that I'm literally a whole another different human being.
I love that. Oh, yeah. And in the end, gratitude isn't about what we have, it's about who we've become. Who am I today that my past self never could have imagined? And how does that make me feel? Well, I didn't know sober, happy people. I just
Mm.
didn't. Like the where I grew up was of industrial, like Southern Ontario in Canada is a very industrial area. It was everybody drank. Everybody drank and some people did drugs. Like someone who didn't drink was someone who drank 6 or less in a night. Like that was literally a non-drinker. Like, I did not know a sober person until my late 30s, and I'm not kidding. And so how could I know about happy sobriety without
Right.
ever seeing it? And so I never pictured, first of all, that I would be straight, like long term, like to say that is, a goal of mine is to maintain my sobriety, like, and that I'm happy, that I'm actually like finding this immense joy and serenity and peace inside myself. And then on top of that, like to be like growing so close with my family in a way that like what they, I think I was written off before my sobriety. Like you start not hanging out with your family partying, and then they start being fine without you. Like it's true. It's like you lie in the bed you make. And if you make it so that they have to be okay without you, they quickly become okay without you. Not that they don't want you there, right? It's just that like they've adapted to life without you because you push them away. And now it's not like that. I'm getting the blessing of spending these last years with my parents and my wife's dad, like just cherishing these times like that I was brushing off before, So my entire life is just something that I never could have imagined. I I would have bet you $1 million 24 months ago if you said you'll be hosting a podcast, having like sponsoring 3 people, starting meetings, like volunteering at the local prison. Like I would have bet you $1 million against that. Like, and thought it's a clincher, man. I'm going to make 1 million in 2 years. So everything's really like I have gratitude and feel blessed for it all. And anything you'd like to say to everybody here at the end?
Yeah, I really like that you ended the meeting on that note, Milan, because
Mm,
I know when I got here, and I'm sure you're the same, and everybody listening is the same. I can't imagine life without alcohol and
mhm,
drugs. I just can't imagine living a sober life. I'm going to be miserable. I'm not going to have any fun. I'm not going to have any friends. That's the things that go through the newcomer's mind. And for us to be sitting here all these years later talking about not only just being sober, but happy, joyous, and free, the relationships,
mhm,
the fun, the friendships, the land, all these dreams that have come true for us will hopefully help the newcomer see that this is not, as Bill says it, we're not to be a glum, boring lot, right? That this thing is about making my life better, making me happy and joyous and free and actually living our best life. The most satisfactory years of our existence lies ahead, Bill said. And I
mhm.
found that to be absolutely true. So I hope that the
Me
newcomer out
too.
there that's just struggling of how am I going to even have fun or live without it can see guys like me and you and say, man, I want that. I want to have the relationships and the finances and the friendships and the happiness and the peace and the serenity that
Mhm.
these guys have.
I absolutely love that, and I'm so grateful you came on today. I love you, brother, and to everybody out there, tune in next episode for more recovery fun. Bye bye, everybody. Bye
See you
bye.
later.
I love you. Please help us help others. If you like what you've seen here today, please subscribe and share this podcast and help us get to 100 followers. We're looking for interaction with our audience. So please email recoveryfreedomrising@gmail.com or contact Milan South Okanagan Starcic on Facebook with questions, topic suggestions, or just comments. We'd love to hear from you.